Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Wendy Van, and this is my son, Alex Van. And today we have a couple of guest people with us. We have Mary Atkinson, who is a reverend and also an author. She has a book called Growing Up with Princess Lily and Her Friends. Do you have other books, Mary?
I have 2 Princess Lizzie books.
There you go. If you're interested in a really awesome children's story line, then you can get Mary's books. And then you can also find her at Heart Happies. And then we have her sister, Vicki Hensley, who's also an incredible businesswoman and artist. And you can find her at Vicki Hensley Assemblage Artist. And all of these guys have been on this metaphysics journey with us. And so today we have been talking about this topic. And so we decided to go ahead and have a Zoom meeting with Alex and kind of delve into it a little bit deeper. So our topic today is ascension and ascension symptoms and what in the world that may be. And so, Mary, why don't you start? What do you think ascension means, and what are maybe some symptoms you are having?
Before that, I'm going to introduce myself.
Oh, we have a visitor today.
I am Archangel Gabriel. And if you also want to go into a small explanation of what channeling is, this would probably be the time to do it.
Okay, so for you guys who have seen our videos, you know Alex receives messages from the other side, from his guides, from other entities that come forth. And so he will either just receive the message and speak it in his own language, or sometimes it's channeled, which means he steps aside and lets that entity speak for himself.
He's also completely still aware of this happening. And it's just easier this way sometimes. You can get messages better across.
So why don't you start with what is ascension?
Oh no, I'll follow your plan.
Well, it looks like Gabriel's waiting on you then, Mary.
What I understand.
Want to hear what this beautiful woman has to say?
I do too. Go ahead, Mary.
What I understand ascension to be is moving from one level of consciousness to a higher level of consciousness. And what I've dealt with for a couple of weeks now, although it's getting much, much better, I found myself sleeping 10 and 12-hour days, or a day, which is not normal for me. I'm a 6 or 7 hour person. And I was constantly tired. I had no appetite, felt very agitated, basically just not myself at all for a couple of weeks. And that's kind of leveled out, and I'm back to my 6 or 7 hours of sleep. And but it's a conscious awareness of what's going on and just dealing with it and accepting it, not fighting it, has helped a whole lot.
So when you kind of accepted the symptoms or accepted that there was this process that you were going through, then it kind of eased it?
Yes.
Okay, I get that. How about you, Miss Vicki? What do you think ascension is, and are you having symptoms?
Oh, definitely I'm having symptoms. And I do feel myself moving to a higher level inside, but yet I'm doing it in a very unusual way, in that I'm trying to accept myself as I am and not be the God's in heaven and he's going to zap you for everything you did, the old Baptist thinking. So I'm actually putting myself through a process right now of being, of just being and knowing that it's going to take care of me, even when I'm not studying and being a good girl that day. It's taking care of me no matter what. It is faithful to me. But at the same time, I'm like, why am I so nauseated? Or why this headache? Or the exhaustion has been so great and I have lost sleep. mainly just one night, all night, but I have some problems with all that. But I didn't realize it was ascension until Mary sent us that text a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago. And I looked at it and I thought, oh my goodness, it is so much easier to understand and accept. And it has been really a kind of open attitude of, what do you want to say to me? Is there something I need to learn here? And having that attitude makes the symptoms not that bad.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
like losing sleep. Okay.
I get that.
And what about you, Lindy Ben?
For me, I always see ascension as we are growing and changing, even DNA wise, the body is shifting so that it can basically vibrate in a higher frequency. And when we're able to make that transition, then a lot of things that we're really struggling with right now, which is, war and competition and all those kinds of things, will ease, because we will understand the connection to all and the love that we all have for each other. My symptoms have definitely been not sleeping. I have been up through the night writing. I wake up early in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning, and have to get up and do things. So like when the messages are coming, it's like, at first I resisted and did exactly what you guys are saying. Like, it seems to make the symptoms worse. And then it's like, okay, I understand we're going through this process, and like go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just say I'm napping now. And how about you, Gabriel? You're going to enlighten us more?
What would you like to know about it?
Kind of help us understand like if someone's never even heard the word ascension, what is that process?
Mary referenced the movement to like upper mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's not entirely what ascension entails. That can be part of it, but that's not entirely what that means. What it references is a process initiated on the other side by a willingness shown over here. 2 parts. One, you have a willingness that's shown over here, that you are willing to walk this journey, and you've reached a point in the journey where you are capable of accomplishing this feat in general. And then a process is initiated on the other side by your soul, without you being fully aware of the decision most of the time. And this is the case for 90% of the populace at this point, even more, that everyone is going through this process at this point. And it's sort of a forced thing at this day and age, because going into this next phase of existence for humans, it's going to be a necessary change. If I was to define the word ascension here, I would define it as the body coming in line with the soul and its wants and needs. And that incurs a lot of things. That incurs the feeling of a loss of self, in which you lose a lot of the triggers and pains that are within you, that then guided what you thought were passions, but were really just avoidances. You lose a lot of desires for certain things, like certain types of food or other things that were used to cover up these. Basically, what we're doing is we're taking out the scaffolding that held you up. Those parts of your identity that were more negative, that defined so many other parts that were more positive. So in that process, you lose both. And that is the discomfort. That is the pain. Because it's exploratory surgery at that point. And the reason why the sleep is because we need time to do this. So we put you to sleep for longer. And you stay over there for longer because you leave your body during sleep and you go to wherever you need to for this process. It's different for different peoples and races. And then this process starts and you may not get back for 12 or 14 hours. And that's just the case with how it works. We do need to get you back here, yes. But we prioritize the process over the life at that moment. Because the quicker this process can be finished, the better off it is for the person that has to live this life now without these.
So let me see if I've got this right so far. So there's some kind of free will act of choice where the soul says, hey, I think I understand enough. I'm ready for this process. And the process begins.
Mm-hmm.
And the structure that probably more ego or limited thought based has constructed in our lives is being dismantled
Mm-hmm.
because it can't exist when we're in, quote, a higher vibration or a different, space.
Well, it can exist. That's the thing. It can technically exist in that space. What it causes is dissonance. So we could technically bring you fully as you are with all your problems and worries straight up into that space. That would be a very bad idea.
So the process is for us to let go of the things that are kind of binding us up.
Yes, we are pulling you up to a space where you have so much more power than you did before, access to so many more connections than you did before. The reason we get rid of the problem things is so you can have clarity and use them correctly.
So like in the Bible, when Jesus says, you'll do all these things and more, people associate ascension with Jesus because he ascended.
Mm-hmm. He was technically ascended from the very beginning, but continue.
Exactly. So, but what we are seeing is basically we are letting go of the limited thinking and identifying more with the soul, which actually we are eternal souls. So there's that power that we already have. And it's almost like that's here and that's here. And we're kind of trying to come to one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so can you tell us like the purpose of why most of society is now in beginning the ascension?
They are beginning the ascension because of the final phase of humanity. That final phase has been initiated and has been initiated for about the last 2 years.
And what does that mean?
Without going into too much spoilers, because I can't just spoil the whole ride.
Gotta give us a general direction.
I'll say it this way. It means a choice. It means a choice between rise as a race and join the greater whole in peace and power and give to the whole, or rise with warlike tendencies and bring chaos, and you won't be allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds like a threat, and it partially is, but I want you to understand that I and all of us here want you to succeed. But also know that the realm you're walking into is a realm of creation and love and light. And you have to personally be willing to step up to that.
Right. Yeah. So it's a choice to rise up.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have some questions?
So I'm assuming that choice is very much like us monitoring our thoughts and becoming calm and meditative whenever it starts to bother you, to rise above it, because that's all going to work out. Is that what we're talking about? Watching our thoughts as part of that?
You're saying like if I'm having more symptoms, then like being able to choose that, yes, I do want to go through this process and I'm willing to release, let go of whatever.
Well, I am saying that, but in essence, I was saying it seems like that you're constantly doing that whenever you are trying to clean up your thought life, whenever you are trying to turn down the negative and not pay attention to the negative, but rather be up here so that you will naturally expand over that. There are some problems I need to work out, but most of it I feel like can be handled in my thought life by monitoring it.
There is more to ascension than the monitoring and ignoring of thoughts. Also, ignoring is not a good method, particularly.
Oh, no. Rising above.
Well,
And
even
trusting is going to be taken care of.
I mean, even rising above and trusting it isn't the method either.
Okay.
There is an acceptance and facing of the darker self that is necessary for this. That's what this process is designed for, is that you step into and you face the darkest sections of your soul and you bring them in. You accept them and you let them return to the energy that they are, not negative, not positive. And this goes the same with your positive energy feelings and your positive experiences, that they are energy, they are will, no matter what. And you have to bring all of them in. And that doesn't mean that you will end up with no desires, no emotions. That's not what happens. What happens when you bring them all in and you accept them is then they come up naturally, not forced, not tied to many other things. And you can actually have a will and a desire for the world that is clear.
So in the accepting of all parts, whether people see that as a positive or negative, it just is.
It just is.
And accepting all that in is just, that is all of me. And what am I learning through the experience of knowing all of that? Then that helps with the wholeness and the joining of it in the higher plane.
Yes. And even if you've accepted all of that, that doesn't mean you're not going to get angry. That doesn't mean you're not going to get upset at things. But what it means is that you will have the foundation and resilience to step in and say, okay, I know exactly why I'm angry this way. I know exactly what's happening here, and that's okay. And what do I need to get my needs met? And then you talk to the person, you deal with the situation in a straightforward way where you are fully cognizant of that and have respect and prescience for the other person in that moment. This is about emotional maturity.
Can I say this back to you so I think I understand it? Because honestly, I'm in a point right now, what I've really been working on, of course, I've been doing the thoughts for quite a while, but like this morning at 6:30, I was wakened with the thought that I dealt with my entire Christian life, and that is that I had to earn God's love for me. I had to earn it by doing things every day. So if I didn't study my metaphysics that day, that was like, okay, Vicki, you had some failures today, and the next morning you're like, oh, do I need to make up for it? Those are all things from my Christian life. And I'm learning, I guess, from what you're saying, is it's not that when I'm in that situation, what I tried to do was just put it down, say, I know that's from my background. I know that's a pattern from growing up. I know all of that. And I accept it rather than trying to say, I want to move through that. Sorry. So is that right? It's like, rather than pushing them down and saying, I've already been working on that, I'm going to rise above it and try to just be in peace, and rather letting my stomach churn through all this. That's, you know, to me, that is how I'm needing to transition my thoughts. Is you're saying just accept the negative stuff, know you're working on it, and live with that thought for the time, or take it higher?
You know, I really think that's a good question, Vicki, because so many of us deal with that self-judgment. And I think that's kind of one of those framework things that he was talking about that's being dismantled, is that as long as we're in that self-judgment, then that separates us from, in our mind, from God's love.
Right.
Where God's love is always present, we can't feel it because of the separation thoughts and the judgment thoughts.
Right.
So how can we, on this level, deal with when we struggle with self-acceptance and judgment thoughts and not thinking we are not feeling God's love?
So concepts like positive, negative, good, evil are constructs of people's minds and things they have labeled things. If you were to remove those, what you get is the fact of the situation. Examples, I had a terrible upbringing, or I was assaulted when I was younger, like various different facts of your life. So this is a difficult thing to explain because there is multiple levels to what happens, and to talk about the initiation of that process without talking about the rest of it, because that's what I'm talking about, is a process that happens where the acceptance of it, the embracing of that darker place or emotion, is the start of something. And then there are multiple steps afterwards, ultimately leading to a state of knowing and safety. Not just for you, but for that darker emotion to know that it is safe being what it is.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I hadn't thought of it that way before.
So let me see if I'm grasping it. Again, things aren't a good or bad, they just are. So in accepting in this thought of, oh my gosh, I was so stupid when I did that. You know, that's a common thought. So being able to say, okay, what is coming up that's where my thought is? And maybe it's in, like you said, the abusive past, a judgmental family, whatever it is that created that within you. Acknowledging it, like, oh, I see where this is coming from. I see where this thought may be rising up, and I'm accepting that that occurred. I'm accepting that this is where my thought went. I'm accepting that this is part of me and my journey. Is that it gives space for that to be seen and heard. And in that process, relieves some of the pressure off of that.
Yes, because if you can imagine it, like that emotion, that experience is someone else going through a hard time. Have a sort of, not separation in your mind, but a sort of space. And you could acknowledge that all that emotion wants, all that feeling, all that memory wants is to be acknowledged, that it was there, that it has purpose and value. That is the point.
All right.
Okay. I
That
think
was wonderful. I understand that. Thank you. That's a big move for me right there.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that essence, we experience it in lots of different ways. When we do accept what's going on, it seems to loosen. You know, something simple like, you know, when you're in a hurry and you keep hitting all the red lights.
Mhm.
And then when you just settle down and say, okay, if I'm late, I'm late. And then all of a sudden they turn green.
Mhm.
It's like, it's in that process of acceptance that frees something up,
Brings clarity.
brings clarity. That was the point I was going to talk about. Was it's interesting that in the acceptance of it, we now see things with more clarity.
Because what is the opposite of what you're doing in that situation?
Well,
Resistance.
yeah.
The resistance to it is the actual problem.
Yes.
yeah. So when we're trying to go, that's not happening, or I don't want to deal with that, then we can't see because we're pushing away. Gotcha.
And that blends in with the ascension of which we're talking about, in that I have really been testing that the last 2 to 3 weeks, trying to really finally get comfortable with that. And I think this is the crowning point that I will work through what we're saying. But I also was experiencing that when I'm experiencing all these weird physical things and not wanting to eat and stuff like that. So, okay.
Yeah.
After
Yeah, I
my
think
2
that-
weeks of
Go ahead, Mary.
after my 2 weeks of sleeping, I was having a lot of memories come up. I mean, talking 50-year-old memories. And it's like, okay, where did that come from? But instead of triggering me one way or the other, I looked at it. I thought, what did I learn from that? Okay, that's good. We'll go to the next one. And it was sort of like they just kind of one at a time kind of cleared out, and they're gone. I explained to Wendy once that I felt like now I'm standing in a completely clean, clear, empty room, and I'm waiting for a download.
Mhm.
And that's where I've been left.
Yeah. So I think there are several people like Mary right now that have walked through like loosening up all that stuff that was kind of holding us bound up more, and feel like they are clear, like she described, but also they're feeling like they're waiting for something big about to happen. So
Waiting on a bus.
yeah, wait. Yeah. I feel like I'm gonna cliff dive, jump right off. So what is happening to us in that point?
The anxiousness comes from knowledge of what is coming. Your souls on the other side are fully aware of the next steps. Not in terms of like, oh, X is going to happen and then Z. And then that's just the way it is. But in terms of the endless possibilities that could happen in the next couple of years. So your souls have all of that knowledge at its disposal. And it's that moment of watching to see what people are going to do. And it's a shared feeling because everyone knows their opinion and their want for this next age, but no one knows exactly how it's going to go.
Mhm.
So I won't say the word cure for it, but it's the closest word I come up with, is figure out what you want for the world. And then start pursuing it. That will clear up some of the anxiousness and allow you to have forward motion with it. And then just keep watch on other people's actions and feelings, and just keep an eye on that to figure out what things to avoid and what to push into, and trust yourself.
It's like each one of us have our own voice and our own way that we can add to the whole. And however we do that, whether that is you just share with your family, your friends, you get on social media, like just being the light for the ones around you,
Yes.
could give us direction. I like that. Do you guys have any other questions about this incredible journey we're on?
I do.
Mhm.
I'm always with the questions.
It's good
I
to be
want to-
curious.
Can I ask if what's going to happen in the next 2 years? Does it in any way parallel what the Christians call the return of Christ?
Being left behind.
I'll answer that in this way. There have been an inordinate amount of deaths over the last couple of years. This is on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
These are what you would call that sort of rapture effect, except it's occurring over a longer period of time than people thought.
Okay.
It's because souls have been aware of this shift for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And there are souls that do not want to go through with it, that just do not want to participate in it. And that's what the deaths are about. That's what the conflicts, natural disasters, that's what those are. They are cleansing of those souls who do not want to go through with it, that want to leave the earth before this happens and go on and do whatever they want to with the rest of their time and go other places.
Oh.
And the ones left are the ones who have agreed to stay and do this phase.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, because I feel, many years ago in the Christian world, I was called into ministry. I still feel that very strongly. So I feel like that just flows into everything, because if I can be of help to others as we transition to this new world, I want to be there, so that does mean a lot to me. There are a lot of people that would not want to do that. So.
Yeah.
So the free will is the choice to stick it out.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is our choice as a soul, whether we're staying here for the transition or not.
Okay.
This one will probably leave and I'll probably be here. So
He has a good bit into this phase to go.
he's going to be here for a little bit longer. So those souls make that choice, and also how we're going to be a part of it. Remember, we're all pieces in the puzzle. And so it's like finding that purpose. So if something sparks within you, like this is something I'm passionate about, or wow, this is something I really want to know more about, then that is probably tied to what you are to offer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing.
I do have another question.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we go through this, so we are seeing what needs to be done, and then we're going through this ascension, and we have all these symptoms that we're going through. Is what you do basically with that is just thank God for them and ask what's to be learned, and then just go on down the road? Is that basically how it's
How do
handled?
we deal with the symptoms? Is that what you're asking?
Right.
Okay.
You want to try answering that one?
What has helped for me, I'll say it that way. What has helped for me is the acknowledgement that that is occurring, you know, and sometimes I forget, like you're talking about, Vicki, like you have a headache and you're like, oh my gosh, why is, you know, right here hurting so much?
And then you just get frustrated and
yeah. And so then when I can catch myself and say, oh, no, I know what's going on. I think the acknowledgement helps, like, oh, okay, this is what we're walking through. And then really a lot of self-acceptance and self-care.
Self-acceptance, self-care, self-reflection through journaling and meditations and those types of things.
So like Mary was describing, if it's a day where you feel like you need to go to bed and you sleep for 10 hours, then you go to bed and you sleep for 10 hours. That's what your body was needing.
Yeah.
And to allow that. So sometimes it just means, like I tell this to the families that I work with that have kids that don't regulate very well. Like if the day is off, it's okay. Make it a pajama day. Everybody like watch a movie and chill. Like follow those symptoms and signs as your own intuition to say, this is what my body needs. You know, if I'm having headaches, then I need to get more fluid in me, maybe turn out the lights, maybe just chill for a while. So like, I just acknowledge it and give to myself what seems to happen. Now, in that process, I do what Mary was talking about, which is, why is this coming up like this? Like there's usually some kind of tie, like Gabriel was talking about, to the construct that's being dismantled. So what is the thought behind here that may have been looming along? So maybe it was, you know, I'm kind of fussing with my husband again, and I'm thinking, why am I getting so irritated with this? And then I get the headache. And then, so like, then it helps me to go, oh, because I'm still carrying this thought that somehow I'm not measuring up, or somehow I'm offending him. Like I'm holding on to something old that isn't really true for my life now.
Right.
And the reason why this effect is so intense right now is because it's basically being sped up 1,000 times. Normally you would do this over a long period of time, but now it's being sped up so quickly that now you're having to deal with all of them at once, basically, and why it's so overwhelming.
All right. That's helpful too. So thank y'all.
Yeah. Be good to yourself, I guess, is the.
This once again was something that seems, I know Mary got a lot out of it, but once again, it seems tailor-made for me today.
Yeah.
You know, it is a hard thing to explain to a lot of people, because and I hear this every day because I work with clients, and I hear this every day. They're talking about these symptoms, and they're talking about all this old stuff coming up, and why am I dealing with, you know, that sexual abuse a long time ago? Why is it coming up right now? And they're going through periods of time where there are a lot of doubt. I know in the last few weeks, a lot of people have had hung-ups around money. And so, you know, for me, I see it as trends, because, you know, if all my clients that week are talking about the same thing, then I'm thinking, oh, that's what's in the air now. And so it's helpful because we think it's happening just to us.
Yeah.
When it is not at all happening just to you.
Yeah, it's happening to
And
everyone.
you're right, to a sense. There is trends, there are groups, there are aspects that are being dealt with by whole sections of society that they now have to handle all at once, because they share structures. It's culture. It's the basis of culture, is this structure that is built through families and connections of shared experiences and ideas. And those ideas are now being dismantled all at once for whole groups of people, so they have similar synced experiences with them.
Yeah, I know one of the things that I keep hearing is, you know, I grew up in the era of competition. you look at America and you look at corporations and you look at, a lot of our society, it's competitions.
Mhm.
And that's how I played sports, competition. Like you were very competitive. And now there's a shift to cooperation, like building businesses where people work together rather than in opposition to each other. And what I hear people say, and I know you guys have heard this too, is, oh, well, what's wrong with our kids today is everybody gets a trophy. Like nobody ever, knows that there's a winner and a loser. Yes, because it's changing. And it's changing into a more cooperative, more inclusive environment. It is not the old competition. And that breaking down of that construct and, building this other is what you're seeing as kind of some issues out there. Does that make sense?
Mhm. It does.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If this ascension symptoms is happening to everyone, does that explain some of what's the crazy is in the world, because people don't know how to deal with these symptoms? They don't know what the symptoms are. And so they're just taking it out on anybody.
Well, you can probably ask on worldwide, answer on the worldwide question. I definitely think for our country and for the rest of the world, we're kind of like in that adolescent period. And you know how in adolescence, everything gets chaotic and crazy.
Dramatic.
Yeah. And it's kind of
beautiful and creating things that otherwise wouldn't have existed because of how chaotic it is. You get certain beautiful, very positive moments that are created out of that.
Yeah, like the Ukraine war. So what I see is that in that chaos, in that craziness, it's part of the cycle of creation. You know how when you want to create something new and then everything goes crazy around it and you're thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to create that? Yes, that's part of the process. And so are we in this upheaval right now? Yes, because we're in the part of the process of creation. That's how I see it, but you can add more.
Very complicated question. I would like to point out.
That's Miss Mary. Reverend Mary always asks some complicated questions.
This is me debating how I wish to answer this.
Truthfully, please.
Truthfully. Well, that's all you're going to get from Gabriel.
I am a paragon of truth, yes. In truth, people obviously don't always want to hear. Your world attaches to this idea of needing an enemy constant throughout your history. That very idea is what we are undermining with what we're doing. We are attempting to create cooperation without competition, without pain, without necessity. Cooperation out of love and connection and respect. Much of the world is not there yet and will not be there for a while. And we know you will reach it. We know that the wars, the pain, it will stop eventually. But right now, that is just not the case. Right now, it is the seeking for safety, the seeking for sanctuary, and just help one another get there. There are those who are not going into this next phase even now. And it is those who are willing to step through the ascension process and help one another that are going to inherit this place after the dust settles. So trust yourself and trust each other.
Well said. Do you guys
I
have
felt
anything
that.
else? Did you feel that one?
I felt that.
Straight to the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much from my heart. Thank you.
Now we have Alex back and
Hi.
that can be intense sometimes. Do you have anything you want to say, Alex?
Just that I'm also feeling like, overwhelmed and angry a lot lately. I even took yesterday to like.
I had. So you're
Yeah.
feeling it, Alex, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I am. But for me, it's so intense. It's so intense. Like, it's like I will just be fine 1 second and then about to boil over and snap something in half the next. And then I'll go to the next moment and it'll be fine. And it's like back and forth. So like yesterday, 2 days ago, we had like a D&D game we were going to do. And I was like, I'm not in a good place and I'm not coming to that game today. Sorry, guys. And I watched horror movies because they're catharsis for me.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
And here I watch Disney. Okay.
Yeah, I can't do the horror anymore.
Look, there's something about like horrible situations being resolved, positive or negative. And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
Each to their- Hey.
So it is hard for everyone right now, but like Gabriel said, love and help each other. That's the biggest part. All right, so he's going to end the recording now. So hope you guys really enjoyed this whole conversation. And we hope you'll join us on another time. I'm sure you will see these ladies again. Hopefully they'll join us in a different topic because they are have tons of wisdom. So we'll see you another time. Peace and love to everyone.